and we'll see.
There you go.
So, welcome everybody to the September 1st edition of the Orlando FWA Zoom meeting. Hopefully none of you are sitting out in the parking lot trying to break down the door, because we did put a note up there saying the in-person meeting was canceled. We're probably going to do Zoom meetings for the next couple of months, only because I had a visit with my doctor and he told me, "Are you an idiot?" He said, "Come on, you're overweight, you're diabetic, you take Cosentyx and all this other stuff, and the Cosentyx lowers your immune system. You shouldn't be sitting in rooms with lots of people and doing whatever else." So I thought, yeah, I've been in the hospital enough times. I really don't want to go back for another visit.
Yeah, we don't want volume 2, right?
Yeah, volume 2, she's referencing, I wrote a book called Hospital Hijinks about the first 3 times I almost died. So don't want to start the sequel to that.
No.
So anyway, we are here in cyberspace chatting. We had a speaker lined up for today named Larry Leach, who we also had lined up a couple months ago, and he's bailed on me again.
Oh, man.
Can you believe it? You know what they say, fool me once.
Don't ask him again. No
shame
more.
on
That's
you.
what I said too.
Twice, shame on me. So he's off the Christmas card list. We're definitely not going to invite him again. I was hoping that a lane person had volunteered to do a talk, but apparently she didn't get my email. So, oh well. So what we're going to do today is an impromptu kind of ask the experts thing between Nancy and myself. I don't know. I think I've known Nancy like around 15 years now. When I first came to
Yeah, about
Florida,
that.
there were no groups like this at all. And so Nancy, were you part of the Jack Marshall?
That's where I met you.
Yeah, Jack Marshall is a famous playwright from New York, and he held a monthly meeting at his house. And I drove up from Orlando even then. And the interesting thing is that many of the people that were at Jack Marshall's monthly meeting are now FWA group leaders or have their own writers groups
Right.
throughout Florida. So we've all kind of done it. Nancy and I have stayed in touch back and forth, trading services with each other and working. And I'm kind of a member of many groups. I always go up to the St. Augustine Ancient City group. So I've been there, spoken there at least once a year for probably the last 10 years,
Yeah, it's gotta be 10.
something like that. So anywho, a couple of things we'll start off with. Start off with a little bit of news, and here's what's going on in the world of it. And if any of you have something to contribute, let us know. Put something in the chat box or whatever. But I talked to Herb Sennett the other day, who's one of the vice presidents of FWA. And if you haven't already gotten it, the Florida Writers Conference is canceled for this year. They're not going to do it. From what I understand, they are going to try and do a Zoom version of the conference. And what I heard being thrown about was this year, the electronic Zoom conference would be free. So you would get to go and see all those. When I chatted with him, basically he told me that by the end of July, they had more than 150 people asking for refunds. So at that point, Rik Betancourt and the rest of the group were like, no way we're going to be able to afford to even run a conference with this many people bailing out. So no conference this year, maybe a Zoom. One of the things we'd like to do Now, I've been doing a Zoom all of last year and all of the year before, with the exception of January. So basically, we're getting up to having nearly 24 Zoom talks. Well, I'm going to go back and clean them up. I'll put them up on my site, but I'm also going to offer them to FWA to put up for free, so that if people want, they can go in and listen to the meetings we've already had and find out about stuff. You know, I still have to chat with, like I saw Diane on here, Diane Dobry, and, you know, I have to ask her and say, hey, do I have permission to, you know, use that? Once she tells me yes, then I clean it up and I put it up. So what do you got, Nance?
Trying to find the sources of quite a bit of this background noise. Yeah, I was disappointed because I was, hoping to get the conference, but it makes a lot more sense to not do that. So I think, Zoom isn't ideal, but it's sure better than not getting together at all, and now we're not all new at it either. This was not as comfortable a platform a year ago. So, we have a lot of technical issues on some nights and other nights, not at all. I've learned to be a lot more flexible. And my sense of humor seems to be a little bit better. So I think, and those are things you got to have for times like this. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to be patient. I mean, one of the things I've seen is that I still would I've got a couple of books coming out here. A little bit of news for you, a little bit of bragging on myself. This year I started doing coloring books. And so every month I've done a different coloring book. I did a Fantastic Sea Creatures. Then I did one called Heroes of the Pandemic. Then I did one that was Moments with Jesus. And then I did a fourth one because my niece was yelling at me, I want a dinosaur coloring book. All right, so I did a dinosaur coloring book. But then I had one of those shocker things that all authors love. And that was, I got an email from this company saying they would like copies of my Heroes of the Pandemic coloring book. And at first I thought, you know what, I've been getting all sorts of spam. I've been getting people calling me every day going, this is the district attorney for Boston, Massachusetts. You've got a warrant for your arrest. And if you don't call us back and take care of this right, and it's like, apparently I've committed so many crimes. I'm wanted everywhere. But, you hang up on those. But I also get calls from places telling me, I'm an agent for blah, 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 literary agency, and we like your book, and we want to make sure it gets out into the bookstores and all this kind of, and I'm like, I don't want them in the bookstore. Bookstore is the worst place to sell. I'll lose lots of money if I do that. So, I wasn't going to pay attention to this email, although it turned out to be correct. It's from a company called Liberty Diversified International. Apparently they have 17 different versions of their company in states all over the US. And every November, they send out a gratitude letter. And in that gratitude letter, they put a $25 check. And they wanted on top of that to put a copy of my coloring book, Heroes of the Pandemic. And I thought, okay, well, that's pretty cool. And I'm thinking, 300, 500 copies or whatever. When they came back, oh no, we want 5,000. They ordered and paid for 5,000. I've already put them in the bank, and I'm gonna have macaroni on my cheese for at least the month of September. But then my thought was, well, if these guys like it, I'm gonna send one to the First Lady. I'm gonna send one to governors and head of Advent Health and police organizations, fire and all that. and see if I can get a few more. Because what I did was instead of getting involved in the publishing process, I just sold them a $5,000 license. That way I don't have to do anything. I just send them the files. They pay me the 5,000, we're done. So they will show me, what their published version looks like. So think about it. And the reason I bring that up is because once a long time ago, I made $100,000 in 1 year because I did a book called So You Want to Move Out? A Guide to Living on Your Own. And I knew that if I put it in college bookstores, that, if the kids got an extra $10, they're not buying a book. They're buying a 6-pack of beer for the weekend, right? So I knew that I wouldn't sell in college bookstores, but kids first year in college have to stay in the dorms. Second year, they can move out, but then they become prey to credit card companies, phone companies, landlords, roommates, the whole bit. And by the end of the second year, they're so in debt, they can't make it back for their third year. And the parents get really upset. So, but these companies, credit card, phone, where they pay to have booths and tables at, what do they call it at the beginning of the year when you first come in, orientation. They pay the colleges a lot of money to have booths there because they know they're going to make a ton of money on the sales. So I sold them $5,000 license. They could print 5,000 copies of the book. Well, I got 20 colleges to do that. So made a nice chunk of money. So if any of you guys got something you can do with that, think about it. It's an idea. So Miss Nance, tell us something new.
Gosh. Let me see. What's new in the publishing world? I want to be able to tell you something positive. It's going to take more effort.
No, that's a hard one. You know what's hard right now? Because of all the fires, paper prices are going to skyrocket. So when I went and talked to a printer the other day, dealing with a project, they told me that you better get it now. Like even if you have orders you want to put in with Ingram or Amazon, put them in now. Don't wait till near Christmas. 2 reasons. 1, they really get a backup and don't have a lot of room. But 2, like I say, there's all the papers being burned up.
Yeah, most of us got, if we do business with Ingram, most of us publishers got notifications in writing this week. They've moved the schedule up and prices are going up and all of that kind of stuff. So, but it's interesting that, our industry is partly communication, it's partly entertainment, it's impacted by a lot of things. And you don't think, you think, gosh, the fire is going on and, Australia, the fire's going on in, other countries, the fire's going on in a different area of our nation, and you think, gosh, they're horrible things. And, we think about the, animal life that's damaged and crops that are lost and homes that are lost and all those kinds of things. But it does absolutely have a bottom line impact on what we do, because we are involved in what is impacted by the paper industry. I'm sure there will be some shifts in the recycle industry to accommodate for that, but your final product is going to be different. So it's, we are not isolated from the business end.
I kind of think that puts the focus on ebooks, Kindle, things like that, where there is no paper expense, there's no printing expense. So
if you have a book that's going to work on that platform, children's books don't do very well. Picture books don't, coloring books really don't convert, so there are books that don't work for that.
Kindle has a new Kids Create software that they've come out with that allows you to do the landscape style pictures. And what happens that makes it a little more useful than before is the kids see the picture the way you want it. And if they click on the text, it'll blow the text up so that the text is full screen and they can easily read it. Then they can shrink it back down into the area that it is normally on the page. It's still driving me crazy trying to set it up because it keeps messing up, but it is something that they're working on in the future. And I would say that happens everywhere because I've done draft to digital, I've done Smashwords, I've done a bunch of different companies, including the Kindle version of it. And it just really, as Nancy said, it's not friendly towards kids' books at the moment.
But you're right. I mean, and then, you know, there's a whole nother thing that you want to remember about ebooks, you know, and it's that's, you know, your best profit margin is out of ebooks anyway. So you may not be writing in a genre or your audience may not be as heavy into ebooks and that would impact it. But I think that when we're sort of, you know, part of marketing is educating people also. And, you know, I don't know how many of you look around your house every now and then, or your apartment or dorm room or wherever it is, and you look around, you go, my gosh, you know, the books are piled up on the floor because the bookshelves are full and there's really no more room for bookshelves. And virtual bookshelving doesn't require the manual labor that physical bookshelving does to keep up with. So, you know, maybe some of those are just, you know, things that we can put into a little newsletter or a new blog or something like that to start to move people over to your ebooks, because ebook royalties are much stronger. In my case, I know that I see if I sell 5 ebooks, I've made more profit than I do on 15 paperbacks. So, I mean, and that's just kind of proportional for what anybody is doing. I have not seen good sales on any of my clients' children's books in terms of ebooks. There's some sales, but not, their strongest sales are in print.
You guys wonder why I keep looking that way? It's because some hot chick is walking by. My phone company told me today that they dropped my, I've used up too much data. Now they've dropped my bandwidth. So I was afraid to try and do this at home. I'd keep dropping out. So right now I'm at your friendly neighborhood Publix in the little cafe area. But every now and then I'm looking at the soup bar and it's like, whoa, check it out. So anywho, the advantage of a college education kind of helps with paperback books. And when I was in college, my parents gave me money for books and food. And of course, I went out and bought 30 cases of beer, right? And I put it in my dorm room and in the shape of a couch. And then I got indoor-outdoor cushions from Kmart and threw a bedspread over it. And when the resident assistant looked in the room, he saw a couch. You know, halfway through the semester, he pops his head, wasn't that couch bigger? You know, and it's like, ooh. When it got to the size of a hassock, I knew it was time to buy more beer. So you can do that if you want to do a lot of paperback books. Just take a room of your house and create furniture out of your boxes of books.
I actually have done that. We were living in an apartment a year ago and I was buying books with the, you know what, for me, I thought the pandemic was going to be over in 6 or 8 months. So I bought books, I bought inventory, which is something I do, you know, every year. But I was living in a tiny little apartment. So one of them became an end table. I just stacked them up and covered them up. I mean, I thought, oh, gee, I remember Rik saying something about this. So,
yeah, if we ever, you know, if there is a pandemic and all the food runs out and people are trying to break down your door, you can stack them up there and have a nice little, you know, safe room where they can't get in. But anyway, The other
Yeah, but-
thing I wanted you guys to think about is that electronic books, Kindle books, right now, the Kindle Short is doing really well. And what I'm talking about is stories and or information, like nonfiction information, that's somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 words. And you can put it up there. An example would be, I'll be putting it up again. And thank you to those who gave me editing feedback on my little editing for self-publisher's book, because that book, every 90 days, I can put it up as a loss leader. So it's like, hey, I'm a guy that does publishing. I teach you how to write books, market and publish them. One of the hardest parts is getting the book ready through editing. And I'm not saying don't, Teresa's getting ready to give me a smack here. You always want editor's eyeballs on it. But you know what? I'll bet most editors would prefer to get the book after you have thoroughly gone through it and cleaned it up
Oh, yeah.
as much as possible. I mean, you shouldn't write the book like a one draft wonder and then say, here to the editor, because you know what? You may end up paying for 2 or 3 editing jobs, because the first time you're going through, they just have to clean up the basics. They can't even really focus on the story that much, you know. And then most books, I always recommend, I don't care what you've done up to that point, when you finally think you're at the ready to publish point, I think you should have a proof done. You know, have them go through one more time, make sure you've dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, commas are in the right place. You got your quotations, punctuation inside your quote. I mean, just the basic stuff. And you will be surprised how much will get by you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm serious. I have looked at stuff and think, well, I got everything. I've read this 5 times. You know what? I know what I think should be on the page. And so my brain fills it in. Then somebody else looks at it and goes, hey, you really ought to invest in a comma once in a while, you know, or all sorts of different things. So having other eyeballs on it, always a good idea. And I'm not talking about English teachers. English teachers, I think, they're the last of the Grammosaurus, and they don't understand the difference between publishing and writing a paper for a class. When you're publishing, there may be sentence fragments, there may be dialect, which might be considered inappropriate. There's all sorts of writing styles based on the character, the setting, the time of, you know, like future, past, wherever, and if it's appropriate. So an English teacher will stick to the, you know, the, rather than the spirit of the writing, the letter of the law for editing.
Awesome for proofreading, though.
What was that?
I said I find oftentimes that they're wonderful, they're terrific proofreaders. Because you know what, by the time you get to a proof, if that English teacher has mentioned, you know, that she would phrase it this way, or that comma was wrong, or whatever, you can decide those things for yourself, but it's very difficult to see the things that are wrong at a proofreading level by the time you've been through this book 10 times. You know, like you said, you know, you're seeing, even your editor, when, you know, I've had books where I've been a developmental editor on it. I'm not the person you want doing your final proofread, because I have spent so much time and energy and brain power on this story that I don't see exactly what's on that paper, you know. But I think
that is very true, because that's happened to me in the
I've
last
worked on a
3
book of 6 months, 8 months, a year. I'm not the person, and I tell people up front, if I'm working for you developmentally, I'm not the person that's going to be able to do your final copy edit for you.
Well, the last 3 people that I edited, it ended up being character development, story arc. We really didn't get into the nitty gritty grammar and punctuation.
Nope.
And,
You
and
can't.
that still needed to be done.
Mhm.
So one of the things as a news thing or an idea to keep in mind is editing usually is not a one-stop shop. You're going to have story, character, and if you're going to do like a trilogy, you've got to work on an arc that's going to go over
For the
2 or
whole
3
series,
books.
right.
So there's a lot of different things to think about in that regard. But let's get back to the single book idea. I'm going to throw out something I call the bourbon chicken book. Now, this is a marketing thought. I usually don't give this away for free. So everybody pat yourself on the back and say, he likes me. Yeah, he does. So what the deal is this. I do not agree with putting your book up for free on Kindle. If you've just written 100,000 word book, you've put a lot of time and effort, money, editing, cover design, you name it, into this book. And then what, you're going to give it away for free? What are you, crazy? No way. It's like you're going out there and the hope is that the book is so good that word of mouth will kick in and people will tell everybody else about it. And that could happen. And I have seen it happen. But I have a friend up in Jacksonville. She put out a book and put it out for free. She got 8,000 downloads, but did not sell a single copy after that. I have another friend, Nancy and I have the friend named Jeff Swesky. And Jeff had worked with a rabbi, put together a book on the Holocaust, and they put that up on Kindle, and they had only something like 2,000 free downloads. But then the next couple of weeks, they were selling around 200 copies a week. When he put it back up again for yet another free time, they got the same kind of deal. So it was a kind of book that really, sort of an iconic event in the lives of many people, had a better chance. So my point is this: if you've written a book, it's a fiction book, whether it's a cozy, a romance, an action book, or whatever, the point is that the book is probably got a bunch of side stories that you took out. Some stuff just didn't fit with what you were writing at the moment, or maybe there's some backstory that could be developed into a small book. So I don't know whether anybody here watches Star Trek or not, but Star Trek has about a couple hundred different books out. And what they'll do is they'll say, this happens between the Trouble with Tribbles and Amok Time. And so they wedge this story in there. Well, if Captain Kirk and those guys did everything in all those stories, they would have never gone to bed. They would have had to make it a 12-day week. I mean, they would have had to change all sorts of stuff, but all these things fit in. So my point is, I was walking across the food court and planning on getting a Charlie's cheesesteak, and all of a sudden this Asian woman pops out, bourbon chicken, right? And I'm like, oh, bourbon chicken. Well, I took a bite of the bourbon chicken and like, dang, this is really good. So I ended up buying the bourbon chicken meal, right? So the point is, if one bite, B-I-T-E, of chicken can get you to buy the whole meal, maybe one bite, B-Y-T-E, of a book can get you to buy the book. So what I'm suggesting is you create a little 5,000 to 7,000 word story using the characters from your main book. A complete story from beginning to end, right? That becomes your bourbon chicken book, which you're going to sell for 99 cents throughout the year. Except for 4 times a year, you're going to have the ability to put it up for free for 5 days, right? So the other thing is that right after that little story, you're gonna put in, you guys hearing all this noise in the background? Sorry, they're
We are,
clearing the trash out of the deli area.
I hear it.
Anyway, the thing is that you will end up putting the 1, 2, or 3 chapter excerpt from the book that you really want to sell right after your bourbon chicken story. So you're putting out this book with a complete story up front and then telling them, hey, I've got this other big book. Here's 3 chapters of it. Check it out. Hopefully that leads them into buying that book. But then I took it a step further. I have 2 ladies that wrote a cozy book. It's a cozy mystery called Bourbon and Benjamins. And basically what we did is I had them create 3 bourbon chicken books. And the reason for that was every month, the first week of the month, we could put up the bourbon chicken book for free. So September, first 5 days, book number 1. October, first 5 days, book number 2. November, first 5 days, book number 3. Then December, we're back around to the beginning of the 90 days again. So I get to go through books 1, 2, and 3 again. So throughout the year, no matter what, 1 week out of every month, I've got a book up for 5 days for free. But now I've gone back to them and said, look, I want 3 more bourbon chicken books. So now what we're going to do is the first week of the month and the 3rd week of every month, we are going to have a book up for 5 days for free.
Rick,
I'm putting
Rick, we
those
got-
two.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry,
Rick, do you, is that the full book that's for free, or is it just part of the book that's for free?
Yeah,
The only thing that's free is the bourbon chicken story, the 5,000 word story.
But that's part of the book itself?
No,
No, it's not at all part of your big book. You
Okay.
get the 100,000 word book over here that you want to get full price for. The bourbon chicken book, when it's not up for free, is going to sell for 99 cents.
So are they the same name or a similar name or a similar look?
Same characters, same branding on the cover, stuff like that. And it may have 1 or 2 chapters from the big book as an excerpt in the back of your bourbon chicken book, but basically the focus is on selling this separate story. Like I said, it could be somewhere in the timeline, you're adding some backstory, or you're giving us additional info, or maybe there was something that happened that you really didn't explain very well in the book. So
I'd like to add a comment there, Rick.
is it
Go ahead.
Stephen? Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to do the free books, in my opinion, you do a long series and you make the first book free, because with the free book, the readers are going to take that free one and read it, and if they like the characters and they like the story, they're going to go buy your other books.
right.
Whereas if you give away a free book and your other books are unrelated to that, you're not going to get much crossover of them going to buy your other books.
Right.
It's got to be
Yeah.
some fantastic book you wrote that you're giving away free for them to go look for your other books.
The whole
So
point
people
of
get
the
interested in
bourbon-
the story, not in the author. So
Right.
think about a
Whole
long
purpose of-
series, and your first one free is for selling the other ones.
Right. The only purpose of the bourbon chicken book is to give additional information on the big book that you want to sell. So all the characters are from that book.
You know, it's,
Everything that happens.
if you remember and they still do it, but if you go to the movie theater, right? You don't see a 15-second trailer like you might see on TV. You probably see a trailer that's a good 5 or 7 minutes long. And that's sort of that thinking. It's to get the audience hooked and wanna want to come back and see the movie. Well, in our field for the writing, like Steven says, you get them really, really hooked, on that story or that character, then they're going to want to get everything they possibly can that contains that character.
Yeah, they really don't care about the author. I've found that out pretty much over and over.
My friends don't even care about the
It's
author.
about the story, and if they like the story, they'll continue on with that story.
But didn't they get annoyed with you because you were poking little kittens with a fork in your story?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that in the cat audience we have here today.
Yeah, you've got quite a big one, don't you?
I know.
Oh, no animals are harmed in my books.
No animals were harmed in the production of this book.
Rick, we have quite a few questions in the chat, and Marie has asked that maybe we talk about ideas or tips for, beginning writers and from the marketing perspective. So I don't know if you can see the chat. Can you see the chat?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Diane brought up some of hers, but I was thinking.
Up at the top.
Yeah, well, Janet has some interesting comments and makes me sound like she has played in this domain of Amazon advertising and all of that. So.
Well, the thing
she's nodding.
is, Janet, what do you do right now with it?
Well, I made a big mistake. Well, I have about 14 books that I've written, and I made a big mistake before I went on vacation. Someone told me about Amazon advertising campaigns. I don't know if anyone's heard of those. So I actually put all my books on, and I put it at like 75 cents a click. Well, I went away for a week, and when I got back, I owed Amazon $609, and I made 2 sales. So
Wow.
I was horrified. I put every single one on pause, and I kind of shied away from it. But now I'm sticking my big toe back in, but one book at a time, and I'm keeping an eye on it every day. I had to go and change some of the keywords, and because if you're getting all those clicks and no one's buying the book, you have to look at your synopsis. You have to look at your keywords. So I'm playing with that with one book at a time, and I'm having a little bit of luck with one of them that I put up there by changing the synopsis and trying to dig up more keywords. But if you're going to do advertising, it seems like Amazon is just not for the author. It just doesn't, they want to give your book away free. They want you to pay for clicks. The only people getting rich, I think, are Amazon.
It's Amazon, yeah.
And they're giving the money
A good
to
business
Prime
model for them.
members for free shipping, but they're stealing it from authors. That's what I think. Anyways, you can play the game of that campaign, but you have to really be diligent to be on top of it. And if you see you're getting clicks and you're not getting sales, you need to put it on pause and shake it up a little bit and move it around. So that is my warning. I am just
Awesome.
still trying to get over the $609.
I'll bet.
I have to pay,
Sounds like if you're gonna stick your big toe in again, you better have a tow truck nearby.
This is where a long series helps out too, because you only have to do your advertising on the first book. You don't have to do it on all of them.
But now, Stephen, are you back to full-time publishing, or are you still a rocket scientist?
Probably November.
Stephen's been through the ringer with this, where he was super successful. I think, what do you have, like 90 books out now?
79.
79. Science fiction, and is doing great, but a lot of things have changed in Kindle and sales and everything. And I know a bunch of people that have had to back off and either add a side job or go back full-time to working. So think about that. But like I said, give some thought to shortened books. They don't always have to be bourbon chicken books. They don't have to be a sales, it can be a side thing you're working on. Like typically I'll put together a little publishing booklet on something here and there and pop those out. Since I'm a book coach, it helps, but the real sales that I make are from books I write in other areas. I used to be a coach, and so I write sports related books, and those do well. Like I have a thing coming out right now that I've already got 1,000 sales on, and I didn't do it through Amazon. I did it through blogs. And what it was titled Gymnastics, Am I Too Old? Because every time people see the Olympics, young girls see the Olympics, they want to become the Simone Biles or the Gabby Douglas or whoever, and it excites them. And they always wonder, am I too old? And so I did a little talk about body changes, peer groups in high school, a variety of different things that are going to take place, because most people don't realize you're putting in 4 to 6 hours a day. You don't have a lot of time for outside activities. So, but what happened was I put it up, I found 10 of the top blogs that were out there and put that info out through the blogs, and I got sales directly through PayPal from that. So, and it was just a PDF. I didn't make it a paperback. I just PDF. I haven't even put it up on Kindle yet. So think about, what do you know besides, romance or action adventure or sci-fi or horror or whatever? You still could be doing a little 5,000 to 7,000 word book that gets your name out there. Nancy, why don't you chat about signature lines?
Signature lines, aha. Does everybody, you can nod or you can unmute. Hang on a second, I got to move this little box out of the way so I can see you unmute, see you waving if you're going to wave. How many people here know what signature lines are? Okay. You don't count, Rick. Okay, one of the most predominant places you're going to see signature lines. If you were writing a letter to someone, what's at the bottom? You sign it, right? So in the domain of electronic letter writing, which is we call email, you have a place built into your email system. Outlook has it, Yahoo has it, Google's got it, wherever. We've got a signature line. You can program that. You can go in and set that up so that it tells people who you are, maybe the title of your current book or your series or anything else, but it's free advertising. When you do a review, how many people here do reviews on Amazon or Goodreads or Barnes and Noble or someplace? Okay, so many people do. There's also a place for you to indicate some real critical information about yourself there. You can't really make it a sales pitch, but you certainly can use that signature line to tell people who you are or what you do. So they're really very short and important because they're always there. You don't have to keep doing it. To Stephen's point, when he mentioned before about the advertising, if you're going to do an anchor book, which is going to be your free book one on a long series, I agree with him there. I learned that tip from Susan Kiernan Lewis. If you're going to do, this is the same sort of idea. Do it once and try and do things so that you don't have to reinvent them every single time. And signature lines are beautiful for that, because once you have set it up, it's there. Now I go in, I actually have it calendared in my workbook that about every 6 months, I go in and take a look at all of my signature lines and make sure that they are current and they say what I want them to say today. What, and that's, there's keywords in your signature lines. So, they're a really good free way to tell the world who you are and what you're doing and that important piece of information you want them to know. I do not use logos and images in my signature lines.
Yeah, in many cases you cannot, like on Amazon, I found, I used to try and put in my web address. They don't want any hypertext links in
Right.
the reviews at all.
Right.
So basically I just put Rik Feeney and then underneath author writing books for fun, fame, and fortune.
Right.
Now, I don't go over to romance and review books and put that in there because that doesn't work. But I have a little pamphlet I wrote called "It's the Little Things That Count: How to Keep Your Relationship Alive," right? None of you know that I'm a Casanova or anything, right? But if you read this booklet, you'd be like, damn, he knows how to treat women right, So guess what? Every Valentine's Day, I get lots of sales because I'm going around to all the other books and, this is a great book, blah, 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 whatever I put up there. Rik Feeney, author of It's the Little Things That Count. So I'll pick books, I don't pick just one book in my signature line. I pick whichever one's appropriate for that place. But have you ever noticed when you go to the psychology section in Barnes and Noble, Jack Canfield's name is on the front of almost every book there. Jack Canfield says this book is what, well, he wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul along with Mark Victor Hansen. You know how much he charges for a testimonial? $17,000. That's how much it costs to get him to put a testimonial on your cover. But the point is, people looking at that stuff, well, if Jack Canfield says it's good, I better check it out. But Canfield knows that it's also marketing because it's keeping his name out in front of everybody. They're like, wow, if every book has Canfield on, this guy must be good. Let's go check out his books. So it's another way of getting your name out there if you can.
But why don't we take a couple of minutes, because it's like 10 of 8, but why don't we take a couple of minutes, because you just did this, you did the media kit program with our Ancient City group last month. And you mentioned that there were some, we could make a list of like 5 or 10 things. And if we were willing to do 1 or 2 of those things every week faithfully, we could increase our market share. So why don't we talk about that for just a couple of minutes?
I was lying.
Yeah. No, you weren't, because I've seen it work with mine. So
I don't even know what you're talking about. No, I think that the thing is that it's really hard to get people to get involved with marketing. Mm-hmm. Most authors I talk to, they love to write, they love to do the book, and pretty much in there, I just want to write, but then you sit back and you say, okay, what have you done to market your book? You should be doing, I used to tell people to do 5 things every day, whether it's an email, a blog post, review, something. Just do 5 things a day. But then I realized I've got a problem. I've got 85 books published. There's no way I'm doing 5 things a day on every one of those books.
Right.
So what I realized was that really out of all the books I've got out there, there's only 5 or 6 that are really making any kind of money. And so my focus for marketing stays on those. Every now and then an activity or an event will come up that, like, for it's the little things that count, like Valentine's Day. And so I'll put some focus during that point in time. Choosing your own apartment every now and then when kids are leaving school and moving out on their own, I'll focus on that. So it it just depends, but nobody was doing 5 times a day. So then I said, all right, how about everybody do just one thing a day? Just one thing, you know, get up, grab a cup of coffee, visit the facilities, but before you do anything else, and I mean anything, do one thing, send out one email, send out one post, send out one flyer, whatever it is, just one thing. Well, people were not doing that either. And I know because I have all my clients, I've put together 2 things that I think every author should have. One's called the marketing calendar and the other's called the impact calendar. The impact calendar is go to Office Depot or somewhere if you've got your own little, what do they call it, Franklin Covey thingy, but you've got a calendar, a month calendar in front of you. I tend to like it in physical paper because I'm not going to keep looking at the computer calendar. But what I do is I go through the year. Okay, here's my sister's birthday. Here's my parents' anniversary. Here's Christmas. Here's Halloween. Here's this. And I realize, you know what? During those times, I'm going to be actively involved in what I call critical life events. You know, this is something, if it's your daughter's prom or it's her sweet 16 or something, you want to be there for that. You know, you don't want to be, sorry, I got to stay up here. No, you want to be in the life events, but you also don't want to let your books drop by the wayside. So the idea of the impact calendar is, look, 2 weeks in June, we're going on vacation. That means before we go on vacation and when we get back, I need to do a little bit more effort on the marketing. So instead of feeling bad, like, oh man, I blew off all of June or I did whatever, because you know what? Once you blow off a little bit, it starts to get easier, you know, to blow things off and not get them done, right? So basically what I'm saying is get the impact calendar and take a look at it. Oh, my husband's going in for brain surgery. Thank God, you know, and you set up some time for that. But then there's what's called the marketing calendar. I want you to think of a marketing calendar is like, how many of us remember having a register in our checkbooks? And every time you wrote a check, you know, you'd put, you know, Costco, $28, you know, whatever. And you kept a list of every single thing you bought. And then at the end of the year, when you were doing your taxes, you could go through month by month. Okay, I spent this much on food, on rent, on gas, on this, or you knew where all the money was going. Well, I want you to look at where all your marketing effort is going. So you'll put down there, here's the dates. I'm going to run a free ad on Amazon, you know, from this date to this date. And what is it? It's a display ad or a click ad or whatever. How much does it cost? 75 cents a click. How much is this? Blah, blah, blah. And then you can look back in a couple months and say, okay, what were the results of that? Did I actually get book sales from it? At the end of the year, you can go through your marketing calendar month by month and see, you know, did the things that I paid for make me money? Or was it the things I did for free that made me more money? What should I spend my time on next year in terms of marketing and promoting? And if you don't do that, then you really don't have an idea. And you wouldn't believe, I feel like a school teacher because my marketing clients are supposed to send me every other week 2 weeks worth of marketing that they've done. And I won't get it. And I'll be like, hey, where's your marketing deal? Well, I did it. I just didn't write it down. You know, the dog ate my homework. You know, like, nah, I don't believe you. And that's it. They do. They just fall by the wayside. So, what do you think about that? somebody put, I think it was Diane Dovry, about posting the first few chapters for free and then selling to help sell the rest of the book. And a lot of people do that. And in fact, on media kits, many times you may put up an excerpt of 2 or 3 chapters of your book. The problem is most people, I want them to read a full story you've written, to show them that you can go from beginning to middle to end
Yeah,
and have a satisfying story that they like. If you only give them 2 or 3 chapters, have you really gotten to that? I mean, you're supposed to start off with the complicating event early, so you know, this guy's a lazy bastard and now he's been given superpower magic and has to save the world, but he'd rather stay home and microwave pizza, you know. So basically, no.
Can it depend on the book though? Because like, let's say
Sure.
it's a memoir and you have different stories throughout your
Sure.
thing. You
Look,
could
one
just
thing I
put one
want
of your
all of you,
stories.
one thing I want all of you to keep in mind is take the best and forget the rest. We might say, here's an idea and do this, and it might not work for everybody.
right.
A lot of things work for me because of my personality and the way I deal with it. When I get people on the phone and I'm working on doing some sales, usually I can get them laughing within a few minutes and we have nice conversations that eventually lead to sales. Other people I've got as clients, they don't do cold calls well. Now, you wouldn't want to buy some of my books, would you? You know, that doesn't really, you know, inspire sales. How many of you, excuse me, how many of you have tried radio?
Not yet. No, I did some.
There's a lot of radio stations
Yeah.
out there that, you know, you send them, especially if you've ever done something like this, you could put together a sample Zoom interview, you know, get somebody to interview you and you respond via Zoom. And then you guys put it into a small little YouTube style movie, put it up on YouTube under your own channel. And then you contact radio stations, because what they want to do, they don't really care what you look like. They want to hear what you sound like.
Yeah, that's the great thing about radio.
Yeah. I mean, if you look like me, constantly, I have to run from villagers with pitchforks and axes and stakes. And, you know, when you're the local monster, it's just the way it is. But the thing is that I will tell you a secret, and this is a secret for all types of media. They don't care about you, and they don't care about your book. You've got to keep that in mind when you're going out there.
No, we're
And
in
don't
the
do it-
entertainment industry at that point. I mean, what can we do for their audience? You know, the people that tune into their show, what can we bring to them that's going to make, you know, that's going to do something special for their audience? And that's what that's always about. What can you do for them?
Yeah, and that's it. Nancy just put it out exactly. The question every producer, radio host is asking, what's in it for my audience?
Right.
If you're making the phone lines light up and you're getting people to tune in and stay in touch, you're going to be back. But if you're somebody who they ask you, well, what's the best way to define gold? Well, read my chapter 6 of my book and you'll find it. You're gone. They're going to go to a station break. When they come back, you're not going to be there. If you tell them, well, you know what? There are actually about 12 different techniques you can use. We don't have time to go over them all, but I'll give you the top 3. And then you do that. You give them the top 3. And then you know what? Time might have been up, but the host may be, you know what? Can you come back for another 15 minutes? And you get to come back and do some more chatting. But you got to remember, you send in a release and Nancy can speak to this. She writes lots of releases for authors. And the thing is, the media, newspaper guys, magazine, they don't care about your book. They want to know what's in it for me. The person reading the article is going to look at the headline and say, what's in this for me?
One of the things I want to say, and this is kind of important for everybody to understand, and there's people here that have already done this, so you do understand it. But one of the things is that there's no, we were talking, Rick and I were just talking, and I was talking with another publisher this afternoon. We had coffee. We were talking about a couple of things. There's no silver bullet to this. It does require that you do some homework. If you cannot dovetail your expertise into a sports show, then that's probably not a show you want to pitch. And so it does take a little bit of homework. You need to listen into the programs from time to time and see kind of, you may be listening to something and you'll think to yourself, wow, I could talk about this on a show like that. Write that show down, start a list as you're kind of going through your life, and make notes about places and people that you really could reach out to and offer 10 or 15 minutes of value. And, you're like Stephen said, at our level, it's not going to be our name recognition as much as it's going to be something that we offered that brought value to them. And they might remember the name, or they might remember the name of your book, or they remember that you write books.
Yeah, unless you get blindingly famous.
Right.
It's all about the story,
right,
and the characters.
But you got to get them to look for your story. And storytelling, the art of storytelling, the craft of storytelling, I guess I should call it too, because it can be learned. You do that even on a radio interview.
And the question is right now, a lot of people don't realize that all types of media have what's called a marketing calendar.
Right.
They know from January through December exactly what's going to be in their magazines or newspapers every single month. Now, if you want to get something in, one of the best book selling times of the year is Thanksgiving through Christmas. Because everybody's buying new Kindles and ebooks and books in general and whatever. Well, guess what? If you've got a great book and you want it talked about in a magazine, you need to we're at the end of the time frame for sending it in. Usually they want it like June, July, and August.
Right.
But take a chance. It's September. You still got October and November, September, October, part of November to get it in there. If your book is interesting enough, they still might mention it. Because one of the things that magazines and newspaper have frequently is open space.
Right.
They do all their text and line it up, and they might have a little block that's 1 inch by 2 inch. Hey.
Which is why you make your strong pitch in that first paragraph.
Right.
It might be all you get.
They can take your first paragraph and
cut
stick
it,
in
paste
there.
it in, and you've gotten yourself some space.
Here's another thing that I've done in the past. There's a place called HARO, H-A-R-O. It stands for Help a Reporter Out. And basically, they put out every single day from media, TV, radio, newspaper, whatever, and reporters and on-air personnel, they put up on HARO what they are, stories they're working on and what they need information about.
Right.
And if you have any potential to supply them with info where you could get mentioned, and or maybe they might ask you to write something for it. So check in with those guys. But I found one thing they put out, I think the guy's name is Peter Shankman, or forget which it is, but anyway, the point is that I did 2 little books. One was called the Puppy Lovers Journal, and the other was called the Kitten Lovers Journal. Well, turns out that they will put up for charity sites, Rescue Pounds will be up there doing silent auctions and asking for donations. So I donated like 10 copies of my book. But you know what? I got like 30 or 40 different silent auctions to put my book up there. And so what happens is my book, those links to my book all come back, spidering back to my website, which moves me up in search engine optimization. Plus, the fact is people are going through this auction site and they see the book. And if they don't get it there, they still might have been buying it online because I saw a definite, I was only
You see
getting
the uptick, yeah, yeah.
1 or 2 sales a month, went up to about 10 or 15 sales a month.
What? What's
So, that can help your book out.
I'm right here.
The other is, how many of you have electronic media kits? I've seen some, I've worked with some clients on it. Sydney Stern, who's on tonight, we worked together on her. She's got a beautiful electronic media kit, which also she's able to print out and put into a glossy folder to hand out. And it's like, people take a look at it and they're just amazed. Like, wow,
Don't you?
look at how clean this is. So if you don't have, a basic,
Easy.
the point is this: if I call Patty Royal and I'm like, hey, I want to interview you for your book, and Patty's on a cruise, what are they going to do? They're going to hang up and move on to somebody else. But if she has an electronic media kit that has her picture, the book cover picture, it has book statistics, it has frequently asked questions, it has excerpts, it has testimonials and reviews, blah, 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 all those elements in the media kit, then they can go in and create an article. And that happened to me in Florida Writer Magazine. I was reading this article in there and I'm thinking, yeah, this guy's pretty smart. This is good. It was me. I was like, oh, how about that? But you know what? I never talked to that person. That person had gone to my site, went to my media kit and created an article because I had a section frequently asked questions. I had 30 different questions with answers up there. She was able to take those and mold them into an article.
Yeah, it's you know what? It's just work that has to be done. I mean, this is the business we're in. So, but
Do you have any additional questions? I think we're almost 10 minutes over time.
I know. Did you check the chat? Make sure we got
I think
everybody?
Robert had one in the chat.
Yeah,
Where is it?
about being a first timer looking for an agent.
Yeah, that was Robert's question.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with agents is great. Just remember, in the traditional publishing world, it can take you 6 months to a year just to get an agent. And then it can take an agent 6 months to a year or more to get a publisher. And then once you get a publisher, it could take 6 to 18 months to do the whole cycle of publishing and getting the book out there. So you're looking at a 3 to 4 year turnaround when you're going the traditional route.
Right.
Some of the publishers are getting fast.
There are still some good reasons to do that. I mean, Daria and I are now shopping for an agent as well, even though we're published traditionally, because we can't take it to TV. We can't take it to movies. You can't pitch it anywhere outside of the writing domain without that assistant these days, because agents are technically gatekeepers for the industry. So,
Plus you get feedback. I mean, even if you decide to self-publish.
Sure.
My plan for the conference this year was I was going to pay for 2 or 3 agents and take my book in and get their feedback, because they've got their finger on the pulse. They know what's going on, with the big dogs, and have them tell me, well, if you want to do this, you should do that, blah, blah, blah. Fix it up by doing whatever. Okay,
I got some good resource articles on that. So You can just email me and I'll be glad to send them. You know,
What was
if
that?
that's something you're interested in.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said, I have some good articles on that and I've got some, you know, information on that. So if anybody's interested really in getting into those weeds, I'd be happy to just email them to you. Just email me and let me know.
Cool. Well, you know what? We'd love to answer any additional questions. You can send them to Nancy or me, and we will do our best. I want to thank everybody for showing up on this Zoom call.
Yep, and
And,
sticking with us. Thanks.
Sorry that it didn't turn out to be the one that we wanted, but hopefully you got a few things out of this. So we will see you all next month.
And I enjoyed seeing you all. So thanks.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Yep. Take
Bye.
good care. Keep writing.